Varjak Paw. Chapter 15. A tongue, the texture of gravel, licked Varjak's face, calling him up from the dream. A scraped, a tender spot on his cheek, blinding colours burst out in his head. He opened his eyes, a crack, a black and white blur swam into view. "Hold still," commanded a gravely voice. "I know it hurts, but it has to be done." Varjak closed his eyes and thought of Mesopotamia, of Jalal, of that delicious cinnamon food he hadn't eaten. Anything, even hunger, was better than this pain. "There," she said at last. "You'll never win a cat show, but you'll live. You'd better live." Varjak opened his eyes again. Holly stood above him, Tam behind her. They were in a narrow, cobbled alleyway, a quiet path along the backs of city buildings. Iron fire escapes led up to sooty windows far above. Drain pipes snaked down through grills in the ground to sewers below. Varjak thought he could see something glimmering, moving about beneath the streets, but it was night in the alley, and he couldn't be sure. In the distance, he could hear those fearsome metal monsters roaring along the roads. He could taste their poison smoke in the air. He could hear too the hisses and growls of street cats as they went about their business. But in this alley, the three of them were alone. There was no sign of the ginger Tom who had nearly killed him. He stretched out, cold, wet cobblestone dug into his ribs. His body was a pulp of pain, yet strangely, he didn't feel too bad inside. He was glad he was still alive. Glad this cat with the gravely voice had rescued him. "You're all right, Varjak," said Holly. "You've been out for ages." "I thought you didn't want friends," he said. "We're not friends," she said. "Tan just made me feel bad about leaving you." "Me?" laughed Tam, "as if I could make her do anything." Anyway, Ginger's gang went too far," said Holly. Varjak stood up unsteadily. "You stopped them, didn't you? I think you saved my life." All right. Holly sounded embarrassed. She wouldn't look him in the eye. With one leap, she pounced onto a brick ledge high in the wall. She started to stalk away, spiky as ever. Varjak wasn't about to lose her again. Without a second thought, he went after her. For a moment, he was down on the cobbles. Next, he was on the ledge. His body seemed to know what to do. He only had to follow Holly. Tam came behind him. He padded between them to the edge of the wall, where Holly stopped to look up at the sky. Varjak followed her gaze. A white wedge of moon glimmered there. It had grown since he last saw it. It was changing, becoming bigger and brighter. Varjak looked down from the sky. Where are we exactly?" "We're in the centre of the city," said Holly. "No one else knows about these alleys. You're safe here." "Safe from what? From those gangs, stupid. On this side of the park, only the centre is neutral ground. Ginger's gang runs the east. Sally Bones is boss of the west. Whatever you do, don't try and fight her like you did with Ginger. I don't think anyone could help you if you did that. Ginger's rough, but deep down, he's still one of us. Sally Bones, she's something else." "Shh," hissed Tam. "She'll hear you." "Don't be stupid," said Holly. "She's everywhere," whispered Tam. "No one's everywhere. It doesn't make sense." "Then how else do you explain it?" said Tam. "You said it yourself. She's not one of us. She's something else." Varjak wondered what that meant. "Not one of us." That was what his own family used to tell him. "What's so bad about that?" he said. Tam's eyes widened as she spoke. "She's all white." Holly snorted. "Big deal. You're all brown, so what?" "She can do things no cat can do," said Tam darkly. "What sort of things?" said Varjak. Tam shuddered. "It's dangerous to even think about it." Holly rolled her eyes. Varjak smiled. Tam was always so dramatic. I won't tell anyone, he promised. I can keep a secret. Well, Tam glanced around nervously. All right, one thing. She can become invisible. She'll just appear out of thin air and you don't see her coming till it's too late. That's why no one can beat her in a fight. That's just tales, said Holly. And I don't believe them. But she's the toughest cat in the city. No question. Even Ginger fears Sally Bones. Please, begged Tam. Don't say her name. Her gang's calling all the food too, continued Holly, which is why we need to keep these places secret. She jumped down from the wall. Varjak and Tam followed her. They shimmied under a low iron railing into another alley. It would have kept him out if he hadn't seen Holly sneak through first. They're moving in on Ginger's turf. That's why he was so rough when you went for his bins, she said. Which reminds me, said Tam. What are we eating? I'm hungry. Me too, said Varjak. Holly shrugged. There's nothing here. Nothing here. I've checked already. We can set to the park or we're going to go hunting. Hunting means splitting up and going it alone, said Tam. I wanted to do something all together. She looked down. Besides, hunting's difficult, she muttered. It's not so hard, said Varjak. You, said Holly, swaying up to him. You know how to hunt. He wasn't sure. He felt like he did, but he'd only ever hunted in a dream. I think so. Holly laughed. You either can or you either can't, and I've never met a pet who could. He stared at Tam. Plenty of street cats can't. Just because you know a lot, said Tam, doesn't mean you're great. I'd rather everyone loved me than being some boring know-it-all. But I do love you, grinned Holly. Her muzzled eyes sparkled with mischief. You do? Said Tam suspiciously. Of course I do, Holly said very sincere. Tam relaxed and smiled. Everyone does, continued Holly. Tam's smile grew wider. And you know who loves you most of all? Who? Said Tam. Who, Holly? Tell me. Sally Bones! Shouted Holly. Tam leaped back, startled. Holly laughed at the shocked expression on her face. Varjak chuckled. Behind her master's eyes, Holly had a sense of humour. But poor Tam hadn't seen it coming, and her shaggy brown coat was standing on an end. That's not very funny, said Tam as her fur slowly settled. Come on, smiled Holly. Let's see what we can find in the park. Chapter 16. They emerged from Holly's secret alleys into a back street. The city was louder here. Varjak could hear the shrieks and roars of those metal monsters close by. There were people too. Their long, striding flat shadows flickered on the walls. And their shoes clacked on the pavements. Keep your head down, said Holly as she led the way through the black, rain-soaked streets. Don't get seen. You can't be too careful in this part of town. This is where a lot of vanishings happened, added Tam. That word again, vanishings. Everyone seemed to be talking about it. What's a vanishing? Said Varjak. It happened all over the city, Tam whispered, but especially here. One day cat's there, the next they're gone, with no trace. Nothing, just gone, vanished. Her brown eyes closed in dread. Some say it's her. Varjak smiled and looked at Holly, expecting that she'd make a joke of it. But even Holly's tail swished anxiously. The truth is, no one knows, she said, black and white fur prickling. It's another reason why Ginger and his gangs are so edgy right now. They've lost a lot of good cats, so who's next? That's the question. The question made Varjak think about his home. Who'd be next with Gentleman and his cats now? The elder four is gone. He should have thought. The world he came from and this world outside, it was so different. The Gentleman and the Blues meant nothing here. The Countess's house had no gangs or vanishings. Was he all that connected the two worlds? So, who was he, and where did he belong? He couldn't go home without a dog. That much he knew. What would it take to make a new life outside? Maybe I should be in a gang, mused Varjak. In a gang, mused Varjak. In a gang. It wouldn't matter. It wouldn't matter that he was a proper Mesopotamian blue, or that he'd failed his family. No one would know. No one would care. He could just be himself. He could be part of something he knew. He could even have friends. Gangs are always pushing you around, telling you what to do, said Holly. It's nothing but yes, boss this and yes, boss that. My gang would be different, said Varjak. You could do what you liked. You could do what you liked in my gang. And who's going to be in this gang with you? Well, there's you two and me. That's a start. Sounds fun, said Town. Well, he laughed. You think so? And what about the small problem that one of our gang doesn't have a clue what he's doing? Varjak stopped and stood up straight. There were 5 of them, he protested. I don't mean that. I meant, well, everything. Everything you need to know how to survive in the city. How to find food and shelter, how to stay out of trouble, I can't find food. I'm a hunter. He knew she didn't believe him. But he couldn't stop now. I'm the greatest hunter in the world. The greatest hunter in the world? She scoffed. You, pet cat Varjak, you couldn't even get your own breakfast. Varjak wasn't listening anymore. Stung by Holly's words, he followed his senses down a turning of the street. He was going to show her. Why are you so mean to him? Said Ham. It's obvious he can't hunt, but there's no need. I haven't finished yet. Hey, Varjak, come back. You're not safe on your own. Where are you going? To get my own breakfast, he growled. He could hear the buzz of the streetlights, the roaring of the dogs, the rumbling of the cities that never stopped. But above, all he could sense something else, something close, drawing him on. He followed it into the shadows, further from the lights. Come back here, shouted Holly. His eyes slowly adjusted to the dark. Deep down the alleyway, he glimpsed a soggy mound of paper and boxes. He could smell food, salty, fishy oil, this wasn't what had drawn him. His awareness started to tingle. There was something else, as if that he was being watched, not just by Holly at town, but by some part of the darkness. With his eyes as black as shadows, he let his awareness flow out. What he sensed was odd and cold. Something not quite live, but not quite dead either. He felt wrong. Varjak, poor, it's dangerous down there. Come back right now. It was Holly. He turned, hushed her, and turned back, the tension rising within him. But that strange sensation was gone, leaving no trace. Had he just imagined it? All this talk, the vanishings was getting to him. He probed the shadows. He probed the shadows again with his whiskers. Motion. This time he felt motion out there in the dark. What was it? Hidden behind this rubbish, something small and sleek was moving. A mouse. It was only a mouse. He let out of the tension and grinned. That must have been it all along. Nothing more than a real live and very breakfast-sized mouse. So this is it, he told himself. Your big moment, your first prey. This is not a toy, this is not a dream. It's real, it's happening now. Don't move, not till it's in range. Don't even breathe. Here it comes. It thinks it's safe. Hunting, the third skill. When you stalk your prey, you become your prey. Varjak's senses went out to it, tracing its tiniest movements, merging with its mind. The mouse came closer. Crack! No, it came closer. Quack! His paws shot out, slapped the mouse head hard, stunned it, held it down, jaws closed around its neck. Teeth sank in, the lethal bite. Varjak gasped. He had killed for real. And it was like killing a part of himself. I'm sorry, he thought. Began to shake. I'm sorry, but I have to eat. Enough, and no more. This is the way the world is made. He stooped and gently picked up the body. His first kill. He gave silent thanks and crunched into his breakfast. It was strange. On the outside it looked and even smelled like that toy mouse back in the Countess's house. But as soon as he bit into it, he knew this was something new. It tasted so real to anything he'd eaten before. Real food, fresh and warm. It satisfied him completely. Did you see that? Said Tam. Did you see the way he did it, Holly? Bam! It never had a chance. I saw it, said Holly. Wasn't it something? Beamed Tam. Where did you learn to do that? Varjak, would you teach me? Actually, he admitted, this was the first time. Holly nodded. I thought it might be. Still, I've seen worse. A lot worse. She winked. Maybe you're not as useless as you look, Mr. Paw. Varjak. Excuse me. Varjak smiled. He never had to have to rely on people again. He was a hunter now. He had the third skill. Tam's nostrils twitched. What's that smell? She said. Varjak and Holly sniffed the air. The alley curved away into complete darkness. And that salty, fishy tang was coming from a place they couldn't see, further down. The scent reminded Varjak of the gentleman's caviar. Another thing he'd never have to eat. Smells great, said Tam. I'm going after it. I wouldn't, warned Holly. We're too near Ginger's turf. You don't want to risk it. Wait for the park. Tam licked her chops. At least it's not her territory. And it smells so good, Holly. Come on. Good, Holly. There's no one else around. You'll be okay. Come on, Varjak. Let's eat. You really like that smell, he said. It's already dangerous here, said Holly. I'm not going any further. You killjoy, muttered Tam. Holly knows best. Holly always knows best. It's true, I do. Well, I bet there's nothing to eat in the park, said Tam. So there. She was right. The park had been picked clean already. They could find no food at all. They came away hungry, except for Varjak Paul. In his dreams that night, Varjak was back in Mesopotamia. The date palms swayed in the warm breeze, and the cinnamon smelled of cooking filled the air. He looked down at the river, where the moon and stars glimmered so big and bright he could almost bite them. This river is called the Tigris, said Jalal. One day I will show you more of the Tigris, for it will teach you much. But tonight we must practice the fourth skill, slow time. The old cat seemed to shimmer for a moment. Varjak blinked and the shimmering stopped. What was that? Slow time, said Varjak. I can move faster than you can see. Varjak's eyes widened. Slow time was a skill the elder Paul had talked of. Slow time, moving circles, shadow walking. Teach me, Jalal. Slow time begins with breathing, explained his ancestor. So first of all you must learn to breathe. Count your breaths in, out, in, out. You see, you breathe fast and shallow like most cats breathe. More deeply, yes, use the whole of your lungs. Good, now count in. 2, 3, 4. Out. 2, 3, 4. In, 2, 3, 4. Out, 2, 3, 4. They sat by the rippling tigress, breathing slower and slower. Slower, said Jalal. In, 2, 3, 4. Out, 2, 3, 4. Very good. Slow the stream of your thoughts. Once you're in slow time, everything will seem to slow down around you. But you'll be fast. You'll be faster than anything. Varjak looked up at the Mesopotamian sky. He could see the starlight bending across vast distances of space and time. A strange energy pulsed through him. His body felt tight, light, and light itself, like light itself. The slower you go, the faster you are, said Varjak. You feel it? You slow yourself down. The energy throbbed in Varjak's belly. Charles' voice sounded like he was stretching, melting, radiating in every direction. Do not be alarmed. This is slow time. Now practice the skill. Chapter 18. I'm starving, grumbled Tam late the next night. Back in their alley, the three of them sat on a high brick wall, thinking about food. My belly's shrinking. I can feel it. Me too, said Varjak. That mouse was good, but it was only a mouse. You're right, said Holly. This is getting serious. Time for drastic action. Now I've got a plan. She looked at Varjak up and down. First of all, though, you've got to look normal. Tell me, Mr. Paul, are you ever planning to clean yourself? Varjak shook his head. He was outside. He didn't have to wash. At home, Mother was washing me. Mother was always watching me. I hated it. You're not at home now. Here she goes, sighed Tam. I don't have to do anything I don't like, said Holly. You can do what you want, agreed Holly. But look at you. The people will notice. They'll think you're wild and take you away. Varjak inspected his coat. He was right. He was filthy. The fine silver blue fur was completely caked with grime. I like it, he said, rather pleased with himself. Plus, she added, you stink. She didn't respond. I'm sorry, but you really do. Varjak looked at Tam. But even she was silent this time. Okay, he grumbled, reluctantly licking his paws. You sound just like Mother sometimes. He stopped after a few licks. Is that better? Holly looked at him calmly in the eye. I'm not saying this to annoy you. I'm saying it because it's dangerous to look so dirty. You'll draw attention to us all and it'll ruin my plan. Now do it properly or I'm off, snorted Varjak, resumed his cleaning. If you're blue, whatever it is, you should be proud of how you look. She coaxed. We are the noblest of cats, he muttered through a mouthful of mud. But the old boss rang hollow in the city. Would any of his family rescue a stranger? The elder Paul, perhaps, not the rest. So, who was more noble, the blue or the spiky street cat who'd saved his life? The question bothered him. He turned everything he believed on its head. So he pushed it out of his mind and concentrated on his cleaning. All right, said Holly at last. That'll do. Varjak's fur was a dull grey colour. It looked very ordinary. It didn't look like the coat of a Mesopotamian blue anymore, and he liked it that way. Now the collar, she said. You can't be a street cat with a collar. Come here. This was more like it. He always hated that thing around his neck. Holly gnawed at the collar. He was vulnerable, balanced on top of a wall with her sharp teeth just to bite away from his throat. But he trusted Holly. She'd rescued him. She was his friend. There, she moved back. Varjak wriggled his shoulders and the hated collar fluttered down. It fell through the bars of a metal grill and disappeared into the sewers beneath the city. Now he was just another street cat with no ties, no family, and no home. Good, said Holly. Good, said Holly. You're one of us. If you run into them, that's what you say. Run into who? Said Varjak. Though he knew that once already, he grinned. Not that big, bad cell. Please, cried Tam. You don't know what you're saying. This isn't a joke. Joke, sounded Holly. She sounded serious. I stopped grinning. We have to pass near her territory to get where we're going, remember? What Ginger did you? These cats are worse. Much worse. They set off silently, each in their own thoughts. Holly led them through the black back streets, always taking the ways that were quiet and hidden, but the light and noise grew stronger and further they went. The rumbling of the city was louder, harsher. Soon they couldn't avoid the dirty orange glare of street lights. They were in the open now, coming up to a crossroads. Holly's fur prickled up fast. Hide! Hide! She hissed. They pressed themselves back into the alley, just in time to see a column of cats patrolling the outside of crossroads. Varjak inside snorted as he saw them, as his cheek burned where Ginger had slashed him. Holly was right. They looked much worse than the cat who'd nearly killed him. There were 7 of them. They swaggered and strutted on the sidewalk as if they owned the whole world. Other cats got out of their way, scurrying aside as they approached. At the head of the column was a brawny Tom with striped fur. Varjak caught a glimpse of his face. He was covered in scars. That's Razor, whispered Tam, one of her lieutenants. The three of them crouched silently in their hiding place, waiting until the patrol had passed. Okay, said Holly at last. It's clear now. Let's move before they come back. The crossroads in this boundary, Tam told Varjak as they left the safety of the alley. Don't ever cross it. Don't ever cross it. I won't, he said. There were no shadowy alleys where Holly took them. Instead, there were tall white buildings arranged in a square. In its centre was a water fountain and a huge stone column pointing up. And a huge stone column pointing up at the sky. Around the column's base there were 4 statues, made one at each corner. They were statues of lions made of gleaming bronze. They were giants. Each paw was the size of a man. They had shaggy, wild manes around their heads, proud, free, fearless faces. They were so powerful, so magnificent, so sure of themselves. That's what we should be, whispered Tam. What we could be, said Varjak. They're great. They sat there for a while, just looking at the statues. We can only come here late at night, said Holly. During the day it's too crowded. People, cars, dogs. But at least it's neutral ground. The gangs leave it alone, which means they also leave those birds alone. Varjak looked again. He was so thrilled by the statues he hardly noticed. The square was swarming with pigeons. Dozens of them strutted about beneath the moonlight, and more were coming in all the time. The air pulsed with their trilling and cooing. So tell me, Mr. Paw, said Holly, how exactly would you hunt one? What do you mean, said Varley, suddenly suspicious. Was she making fun of him again? He'd never tried to hunt a bird. It seemed too difficult. I mean, go and get one of those pigeons. It sounded like a challenge. He searched her mustard eyes. She didn't look like she was making fun of him. She meant it. All right, I will. All right, he said. I will. Holly, said Holly, said Tam. That's not fair. Don't take any notice of her, Varjak. She's being mean again. I want to do it, he said, still looking into Holly's eyes. She smiled. Riley slanted into the square. He stepped at a bird and turned his awareness onto it. He observed it with his eyes and ears, whiskers. Nothing it did could surprise him now. He and it were one. He crept towards the pigeon, stealthy as Jalal himself. In this whole world, there was nothing but him and his prey. Varjak sprang, and 100 wings came at him. 100 claws curved out, and 100 beaks clawed in chaos. Panicked, Varjak fled from the flock. He hadn't expected anything so fierce. His fur ruffled and his tail trembled. He hid behind Holly and Tam and watched the birds settle down from a safe distance. Varjak, cried Tam. Are you okay? He shook his head. I told you, Holly, no one could do that. Exactly, said Holly. That's exactly what happens to me every time. That's why even the gangs don't bother with this place. But I always think if we could just work out how to catch the birds, we'd never go hungry again. It's impossible, panted Varjak. His frost was still pounding. Impossible! For one cat, yes. But imagine 3 of us hunting together. It could just work. Well, that's a plan. What do you think? Yes, said Varjak Paul. I don't like the sound of it, said Tam. She buried her head in her paws and curled up to sleep. Wake me up when it's time to go home. Chapter 19. Varjak and Holly talked through the night by the giant bronze lions. There was nothing to distract them, but the fountain trickled and the birds trilling. It was strange at first. No one had ever wanted to talk about hunting before. Varjak could still barely believe that someone his own age was interested in it, and not senseless kitten games like Jay, Jethro, and Jerome. But it was true. Holly was easy to talk to because she was like him. She liked the same things, and I worked in the same way. Sometimes it was hard to keep up with her. Whenever he thought he had the answer to something, she asked another difficult question. Why like this, not like that? And she had ideas he would never have thought up. But he had a few of his own, too, and together they worked out their plan. That night, Varjak felt something he never felt before, or rather, he didn't feel something. He didn't feel alone anymore. They woke Tam just before dawn and explained the plan to her. Her eyes grew round with fear. Me? She said. You want me to do that? Why me? Can you be part of the plan? Said Holly. Or Varjak's? Well, no, but you've got to do it, Tam, said Varjak. It's impossible without you. Is it? She said. Of course it is, said Holly. And if you do it, I promise I won't say her name anymore. Well then, said Tam cheerfully. What are we waiting for? They took up their positions as the first rays of sunshine splashed onto the white buildings, filling the square with light. Everything began to glow. The ground, the sky, even the water in the fountain. Varjak crept up the pigeons from one corner of the square. Holly crept up from another. Tam stood in front of them on the far side of the flock. At Holly's signal, Tam sprang at the pigeons. 100 birds beat their wings, fierce and dangerous in their flocks. Tam kept going, never slowing, just aiming for the other side in a blur of speed they couldn't stop. And Varjak and Holly flew out of the morning sun behind them. It should have been easy, but the birds were distracted by Tam and it didn't see them coming in the haze of brilliant light. That was the plan, but even as Varjak dived in, the thrill of the hunt in the veins in his race, it started to go wrong. Tam was clear through, but there were still too many pigeons in a mass. He and Holly were on the edge of the flock, but couldn't get close enough to every single bird to strike. The birds turned on Holly, wings flapping, savagely, claws curving out. She didn't run. She stood there bravely, trying hard. But now they surrounded her, pecking at her with shrill, sharp beaks. Holly was in trouble. He was trapped, and she couldn't get out. She was tearing. They were tearing, scratching, ripping at her. Varjak could see the panic mounting in her face. Tam was helpless on the other side. Quick! He had to do something quick. Slow time, the force skill. Everything will seem to slow down around you, but you will be fast. You will be faster than anything. Would it work in the real world? He breathed. In 2, 3, 4, out 2, 3, 4, and the wings slowed down. Roger could see each beat, each claw as if slow motion. He dived after Holly into the mass of birds, moving smoothly through the chaos, making them fly apart for just a moment. Holly! He called. She looked up. It was enough to break the rising terror in her eyes. She darted through the gap he'd made, away from the flock and towards town to safety. Out of danger now, Varjak breathed normally, switched out of slow time. It worked. The force skill really worked. Did they hurt you? He panted as he caught up with her. Nothing wrong with me, said Holly, though she was trembling. Thanks for getting me out, she added, much more quietly. No problem. He saved you, bubbled Tam. I guess we were even now, she muttered. Didn't do it for that, said Varjak. Holly didn't meet his eyes, but just for a second, when I thought he saw a smile flicker on her face. Come on, she says, sidling away from the square. We've got to hurry. I don't want to be here in the broad daylight. It's too dangerous. You don't want another go, said Varjak. He knew that she was shaken. Her fur still ruffled. Maybe it would help to try again. Why bother, she said, padding back through the city. Plan didn't work. It was a stupid idea. No, it wasn't, said Varjak, in the place with her, ahead of Tam. And you did everything you could. How about me, said Tam. Did I do all right, Varjak? You were great. You were both really brave. I was great, beamed Tam. There were just too many of them this time, said Varjak, but that doesn't mean it's impossible. Maybe, said Holly, picking up the pace. Maybe if we tried it another way. They started on a new plan as they headed back. The city was beginning to rumble with life once more. Familiar streets flashed past as they went by. I'm still hungry, said Tam. Her nostrils twitched. Wait, you two, it's that fishy smell again. She stopped by a turning of a side street, the same turning where Varjak had caught the mouse. Even in daylight, it curved away into darkness. Into shadow. Come on, Tam, said Holly over her shoulder. But it's that lovely smell again, said Tam. And there wasn't any food in the park, and the hunting didn't work. I'm still hungry. I'm still hungry. You're not stopping here, Holly. If you go, you're on your own. She turned back to Varjak and carried on talking. They walked away, planning their next hunt together. Tam stayed behind at the time. It's your loss, called Tam. I'll see you back in our alleys. Chapter 20. Tam didn't return the day. At first, Holly laughed it off. She's probably stuffing her face. But when Tam didn't show up by nightfall or the next morning either, she began to look worried. It was the same street where you had caught the mouse, wasn't it? Said Holly. I had a bad feeling about that place. Varjak thought maybe back to the strange sensation he had in the turnip. Maybe there was something else out there after all. You know, I had a bad feeling too. Let's go and find her, said Holly as the rain began to fall. They started in the very place where Tam left them. They followed the turn she'd gone down into the shadows, but it just led out onto another alleyway. There was no sign of Tam. Nothing, not even with Varjak's awareness. It was just an ordinary street. They ranged wider across the centre of the city, where the street cats, who weren't in either of the gangs, lived. None of them had seen Tam. They tried Ginger's territory next. Near the concrete block where Holly had seen Varjak, they found some cats from Ginger's gang, sheltered from the rain. I'm looking for Tam, said Holly. And any of you seen her? They said they hadn't. Do you believe them? Asked Varjak as they headed for the park. Ginger's gang are rough, but they're honest, said Holly. If Tam runs into them, if there'd be any trouble, they'd tell us. Tam wasn't in the park either. They searched till that twilight twilight. They found a few scraps of food, but not a sign of Tam among the wet dead leaves. Tired and soaked from the hard rain that fell through the day, they headed back to Holly's alleyways. To Holly's alleys. On their way, they met a big stripy Tom, prowling in a covered cobbled passage. Varjak recognized him at once by slash marks on his face. He didn't look friendly, but Varjak's fur twinkled at the sight of him. But he smiled at Holly, showing a set of sharp white teeth. "Razor?" said Holly. Holly, nodded the striped Tom. "Good to see you. Where's that shaggy cat you're always with?" "Tam, I don't know where she is." "Have you seen her?" Razor shook his head. "No, but she hasn't been near Sally Bones' territory. I'm sure of that." "How do you know?" "No, but she hasn't been near Sally Bones' territory. I'm sure of that." "How do you know?" "It's my job." He licked his paws proudly. "Who's this you've got with you?" He flicked his tail in Varjak's direction, but he didn't look at him, as if he wasn't wasting time over. "I'm Varjak Poor," said Varjak. Tom's twitched with contact. "I wasn't talking to you," he said. Varjak felt silent. Nothing to worry about," said Holly quickly. He's one of us. Just a pet who got lost." Ray sniffed. Why waste your time with a pet? Why waste your time with a pet? Come and join our gang. You know Sally Bones will win in the end. They said he's hers." Holly smiled but didn't say anything. You'll be safe from the vanishings," said Razor. Sally looks after her own." "Thank you, Razor," said Holly. "Thank you, Razor," said Holly. "But you know I've never wanted to be in a gang, and I've got to look for Tam now." She began to move away. Razor stepped in front of her, muscles rippling. "Come on, Holly," he said. I always liked you." Holly was still smiling, but Varjak could see her trying to edge away. "You could be somebody in a gang," said Razor, moving closer. Razor moving closer to her. You could be important. I could make you important." "I don't want. Come on," insisted Razor. "I'll take you to meet the boss. I'm one of her top cats now." There was a flash of fear in Holly's muster eyes. Varjak saw it. She told you she doesn't want to, he said, without thinking. Varjak turned to him. The scars on his face writhed like snakes. "I warned you already," he growled. Slam! A rock-hard paw smashed into Varjak's face. Varjak reeled, stunned, and sank into the ground in a ball of rain. He wanted to get up to fight back, but his legs were soggy paper and the world was spinning round him. "Don't get in my way again," snarled Razor. His words twirled above Varjak's head like stars. One hit, that was all it took, and he didn't even see it coming. The brawny Tom turned back to Holly. "When you've had enough time of wasting your time with the weak little losers, and you want to see what it's like being a real cat, come and find me." He batted away, tail held high. "Varjak," said Holly when he was gone. "Are you all right?" Varjak shook his head. Blood trickled out of his mouth. He wiped it away with the back of his paw. It matted on his fur. "It was brave standing up to him," he said, "but it was stupid. You can't win a fight with Razor." "I'll beat him one day," said Varjak. "You're crazy," she sighed. "You've got to learn to use your brain. There's no point fighting cats like that. The best you can do is keep out of the way." "I will beat him," Varjak vowed. Whoever had left those scars on Razor's face had managed it. He could do it too. "You're not going to beat anyone today, Mr. Paw," said Holly. "Come on, let's keep looking for Tam." Chapter 21. Varjak's wounds healed as the moon grew bigger in the sky. He slept most days in Holly's alleys, or hunted and foraged for food with her. By night they searched the city for Tam. He was worried about her, But he liked learning about hidden ways and secret paths that no one else knew. Together, he and Holly walked the city's walls, its window ledges, its shadow black, its window ledges, its window ledges, its shadow, its window ledges, its shadow, its shadow walking, its shadow shadowy back streets. They always kept clear of people, though they could often hear them close by. They stayed away from the wide main roads, and they never approached or even mentioned those shrieking, roaring metal monsters that prowled up and down them. Everywhere they went, they asked about Tam. No one had seen her. Neither Varjak nor Holly said the word aloud, but it was beginning to look like Tam had vanished. "Now," said Holly, "there's one part of the city we haven't searched yet, and it's time we did. Sally Bones' territory. It's dangerous, but we've got to try it." Varjak didn't say anything. He didn't think that they'd find Tam there. They didn't think they'd find Tam there. There was nowhere near it the last time they saw her, and he didn't they didn't want to run into Razor again so soon. But he was curious about the tales of Sally Bones, the cat who was white and could appear out of thin air. Holly led the way through the streets, out of their familiar ground, and into parts of the city Varjak hadn't seen him before, though he'd glimpsed them from the hill long ago. The streets became bigger the further they went. So did the buildings. One of them was almost high as a hill, and its outline sparkled with lights. It had a glass front, windows instead of walls. Each showed something different inside. Varjak peered into a window. There were animals in their ranged out and displayed on a glass shelves, little furry mice, fluffy rabbits, colourful birds. Their eyes were open, but they were silent and still, as if they were stuck in the moment, frozen times, forever about to move, but not quite making it. "Stop staring, Mr. Paw," said Holly. Never seen toy shop before? What are they?" "They're toys. They're nothing. Children play with them." She moved off down the pavement. "Come on, we can't hide around Sally Bones' territory." Varjak tore his eyes away from the frozen scene and followed her. But he was getting the strangest feeling. He was like in the alley before the mouse hunt. A cold sensation, being watched by something not quite alive, not quite dead. He let his awareness flow out again and found the source. It was coming from a stack of boxes. It was by the toy shop door. One box had fallen on its side and slid open. And split open. The flap hung loose and limp. "I'm very well, thank you, please," said a tiny little voice from inside the box. It rustled out, and out came a cat. Varjak's first thought that it looked like Tam, or a cruel joke about Tam. It had her shaggy, chocolate brown fur and comfortable looking, but everything else was horribly wrong. Like the animals in the window, it didn't seem real. Its eyes were wide open, but they were glassy, expressionless. It was smiling, but there was a weird empty. It talked, but back to front nonsense. "Tam," said Varjak. "Tam?" "Happy, happy, happy," said the cat. Varjak's first stood on Tam. "It's Tam," he said quietly. "Look, Holly, what's happened to her?" "What's happened?" "Don't be stupid," said Holly. "It's a toy." She peered closer at the cat. Its head nodded, bobbing up and down cheerfully. It's a good one, very realistic. Look at the details. The fur is perfect. But it's Tam's fur was never so neat. Holly sniffed it. Doesn't smell like a cat, does it? And listen to it. That's not how any cat talks. I'd be your friend forever, said the toy in its strange hollow voice. Oh, Holly, it's horrible. I'm sure it's Tam. Of course it's not Tam, she yelled. Get it through your head. Tam's gone, see? She's vanished. Like there was a moment of silence. Even the toy cat seemed to be hanging on her words. There, I said it. She's vanished. She was a greedy idiot, and now she's vanished. Another fine friend who's left me. She's not coming back ever. Understand? Varjak had never seen her so upset. He knew Holly missed her friend, of course, but she was so spiky and cool. She'd never shown it before. And I'm going to keep looking for her, he said softly. Here's your pretty kitty cat, said the toy. Holly closed her eyes. No, she's not here. She's not anywhere. She's vanished. She shook her head. Sorry, that's not Tam. Violet peered again at the toy cat. He was right. Tam had vanished. That wasn't her. It looked like her, but that wasn't at all. That wasn't all. It wasn't even alive. It wasn't even dead. A cat which was not quite a cat. And behind it there were more, just the same, shuffling around in a broken box. I'm very well, thank you, please, they said. He shivered. I don't like them, he said. Why would anyone want one of those when they could have a real cat? People like toy cats better than real cats, said Ollie. No looking after. They do what you want. They're always nice and cute, not like us. Not like you anyway. You couldn't get a toy cat to stink if you tried. He had to smile. Come on, he said. Let's get out of here before we run into Sally Bones. Let's go home. Varjak smiled well as he sped back through the city. He didn't like these toy cats, not one bit. But then he remembered that toy mouse back in the Countess's house. How real it had seemed, and how much he'd wanted to play with it. The Countess's house. He hadn't thought about it often, and with all of that was happening, but the idea brought pictures to his mind. An empty armchair, an antique fireplace, a row of china bowls. The pictures were hard to hold on to. They kept changing into other pictures. The harder he tried to hold on to them, the harder it became. Even the garden that night, the gentleman's lips, the way his cats moved, it was all fading. At that moment, Varjak felt he would give anything to be with his family again. Anyway, away in the distance, he heard the muffled roar of a metal monster. A great wave of sound pushed up from his stomach. Let's stop here, Mr. Paw, said Holly suddenly, snapping him out of his thoughts. She pointed up a covered alley. We're still on Sally Bones' turf, but it's more dangerous to walk through her streets now than to sleep here for the day. She smiled at him. He tried to smile back, but couldn't. Hey, what's wrong? She said. I want to go home. Told you it's safe to just stay here. Not that home, my old home, on the hill. Still thinking about that, she shrugged. What's stopping you? I can't. I was supposed to go back with a dog to save my family from the gentleman and his cats. Tried to get one, Holly. I just stood there in front of those monsters, but I couldn't do it. I couldn't even get them to talk. Closed his eyes, the shame-sickening new cut wound. Well, it's not your fault, she said gently. Dogs are scary, stupid too. I've never heard of a cat who could talk to them. Varjak sighed. Jalal could do it. He knew that. But he was no Jalal. He wasn't even a proper Mesopotamian blue. All I know is that I've let everyone down and I can never ever go back without a dog. I don't have a home anymore. That's not true. The whole world's your home now. Even Sally Bones' territory. She winked a mustard eye at him. Let's get some sleep. You'll seem better tomorrow. You'll never know what's around the corner. They settled down side by side in the shadows of the alley. There was no invisible barrier between them anymore. There hadn't been for quite a while. Goodbye everyone, and thank you for listening to this.